Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Heavy rains have left costly repairs for cities across San Diego County. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. In hopes of getting some help from the government, the city of Oceanside has declared a local emergency. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has a look at the damage done.
More rain equals more potholes and sinkholes and landslides and even sewage spills. All things that the city of Oceanside has seen as a result of the recent storms.
We have had an extraordinary amount of rain lately, and that rain did cause some significant damage to various areas of the city.
A landslide on Skyhaven Road damaged several mobile homes in the Green Valley Mobile Home Park in Vista. Several homeowners were displaced. La Salina wastewater treatment plant reached 2 times over capacity, resulting in a 62,000-gallon sewage spill that made its way into Buccaneer Beach. Some of the spill was collected by a vacuum truck, but the beach remains closed.
While the sewage spill advisory is lifted, Buccaneer Beach is still closed based on county stormwater advisories.
Citywide sinkholes, flooding, and street damage have resulted in help from outside contractors for repairs. The storm-related costs are estimated at $1 million, and Oceanside is looking to get government assistance with that by declaring a local emergency.
Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution ratifying the Director of Emergency Services proclamation, declaring the existence of a local emergency, and authorize the city manager or designee to seek assistance from the California Office of Emergency Services.
This means eligible for up to 93% of cost reimbursement if assistance is approved. Not included in the proclamation is another major repair happening on the 78 westbound freeway between College Boulevard and El Camino Real. Work that is still ongoing due to the weather delays. Caltrans, who's in charge of the project, said the issue is the dirt needs to dry out completely in order to do much of the work above and below ground, including any paving. Once work on the westbound side of the 78 concludes, Caltrans will continue the repairs outside. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
With rain expected to last through the night, the city of San Diego is activating its inclement weather shelter program, and that means more beds will be available at several downtown locations, and those are the Joan Kroc Center, the Palmyra Billy Center at Father Joe's Villages, the San Diego Rescue Mission, and Living Water Church of the Nazarene. Check-in times and types of people served vary by location. How long will this rain last, and could it wash out the Padres opening day here in San Diego? We'll have our extended forecast just a little bit later on. County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher is being accused of sexual assault and harassment in a lawsuit filed by a former MTS spokesperson. It comes days after he dropped out of the state Senate race and announced that he would seek treatment for post-traumatic stress and alcohol abuse. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis has more on the lawsuit and Fletcher's response.
The lawsuit was filed by Grecia Figueroa, who was abruptly fired from MTS on February 6, the same day Fletcher announced his candidacy for California State Senate. In addition to suing Fletcher, Figueroa also claims that the MTS failed to prevent the sexual harassment and even engaged in whistleblower retaliation. Court documents show that Figueroa felt pressured to reciprocate Fletcher's advances. He's a county supervisor and the chair of the MTS board. She was afraid he could use that political power to destroy her career if she upset him. Neither Figueroa nor her lawyer responded to a request for comment. Figueroa claims that Fletcher started stalking her on social media in 2021. She also claims that in 2022, Fletcher sexually assaulted her twice. One instance allegedly happened on December 1st, 2022. Fletcher allegedly assaulted Figueroa in a conference room after an MTS executive committee meeting. The next day, at this MTS press conference, Figueroa says that Fletcher made her uncomfortable by grinning at her. Fletcher and his lawyer responded to the lawsuit in a news release Wednesday morning. Fletcher denied the allegations, but he admitted to having a consensual extramarital affair with Figueroa. Fletcher is married to California Labor Federation leader and former Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher. In the release, Fletcher said that the allegations are designed to drive headlines. He also said Figueroa demanded millions from him before filing the lawsuit. Fletcher's lawyer couldn't be reached for comment, but said in a release that Fletcher will aggressively fight this in court. The lawsuit comes just a few days after Fletcher announced that he was dropping out of the California State Senate race. He claims that he decided to leave the race to seek medical treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder and alcohol abuse. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
And we reached out to MTS, and in a statement, General Counsel Karen Landers said MTS is aware of the lawsuit and has engaged an outside law firm to investigate. Landers added that Fletcher resigned from his position as board chair, and Stephen Whitburn will act as chair pending board action. A family in Imperial Beach is facing an uncertain future after receiving an eviction notice from their landlord, who wants them to leave so the property can be remodeled. KPBS reporter Claire Strong went to meet them.
Tenants' rights activists were out in force in Imperial Beach today, showing their support for mother of two Patricia Mendoza, who faces the prospect of losing her home.
Living out of that van, that's my biggest concern, because rents are too damn high. I won't be able to afford what I'm able to afford here because I've been here for so long.
Mendoza, who's lived in the house on Holly Avenue since 2017, recently received a 60-day notice to vacate for substantial remodeling. But the single mum, who says she always pays her rent on time, thinks it's because she pays less than her new neighbours, who live in adjacent properties which are also owned by the same landlord. And the situation's having a big impact on Mendoza's 12-year-old son.
He tells me that sometimes he can't think because he only thinks of how I'm worrying. Because he says, Mom, you're taking the toll for everything. And it's true, but that's Mommy's job. You know, let me worry about that.
Tenants' rights activists are calling for Senate Bill 567, better known as the Homeless Prevention Act, to be passed. They say this would close loopholes and protect people like Mendoza from being evicted over remodeling.
And most people, like Patricia, are already struggling to make ends meet. Let alone be able to pay twice as much, go through the whole moving process, the deposit, the first month, the last month, all the application fees. Having to take time off work is really expensive, and a lot of times an eviction could lead to homelessness or even worse.
But mum and pop landlords are also facing their own fair share of stress, according to Lucinda Lilly from the Southern California Rental Housing Association.
And these are not people that have huge bank accounts. They own one, maybe two, maybe three rental housing units, and they're doing the best that they can to survive what has been a really difficult period of time.
Back in Imperial Beach, and Mendoza is contemplating her family's next move. KPBS reached out to her landlord for comment, but they didn't respond. Mendoza says she just wants her kids to have the stability of a home.
It just hurts. It breaks my heart that this really, it gives them a lot of instability. And that's not what I want. I just want a home where we can live in peace.
Claire Strong, KPBS News.
The University of California is proposing its first ever admission guarantee to qualified transfer students. Community college students would be required to complete a new curriculum of general education courses, along with specific coursework needed for UC majors. They would also have to maintain a minimum grade point average with no guarantee that they would be accepted at the UC campus of their choice. And that has some education advocates criticizing the proposal as too complex and confusing.
We should be able to tell students, if you do A, B, and C, you are guaranteed admission, and not, constantly change the rules on students in terms of what they have to do.
And even though college transfers are traditionally seen as a two-year process, the Campaign for College Opportunity reports that only 4% of all community college students across the state accomplish that. Most take up to 6 years to finish an associate's degree. The SDSU men's basketball team is in Houston tonight, and they might just return home with a national championship. It was a bit of a rainy send-off this afternoon on the SDSU campus. The Aztecs are competing in their first ever Final Four. Coach Brian Dutcher signed some autographs before getting on the team bus to the airport. Now, if the Aztecs can beat Florida Atlantic this Saturday, they face either UConn or Miami on Monday. And while the team is away, Viejas Arena is welcoming fans once again for a watch party. Doors will open at 2 for Saturday's 3 p.m. game. SDSU will also give away Final Four rally towels for the first 2,500 fans who show up. The event is free and open to everyone with no ticket required. The Viejas Arena clear bag policy will be in effect. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill he says will give state regulators the power to punish oil refiners when they make too much money off of California drivers. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explains what that could mean for statewide gas prices.
Gas prices are slowly creeping back up, and that's worrying people like San Diego's Scott Johnson.
They always go up in the summer. You know, I guess maybe it's the vacationing or whatever. More people are driving in the summertime, so it's kind of a price gouge a little bit, you know, take advantage of it. That's what they do.
But there's a new bill meant to prevent just that. Governor Gavin Newsom just signed a gas price gouging measure to create a new committee within the California Energy Commission. They'll gather private business information and data from oil refiners to consider if a cap is needed on company profits and a potential penalty when the cap is exceeded. USD economics professor Alan Jin says it will provide more transparency.
It just gives the California Energy Commission power then to look into oil companies' operations to see if they are price gouging when gas prices surge.
The decision comes right before California's April 1st deadline to switch to summer blend gas, which is usually more expensive. But Jin isn't sure how big of an impact it will have on gas prices unless the oil companies are proven to be price gouging.
I think it's going to probably have minimal effects. There are other forces at work here that impact gas prices in California.
There was pushback from Republicans on the law. The California GOP in a statement referred to the bill as reckless. They said not only will this law raise gas prices on consumers, but it'll lead to fuel shortages and kill California jobs in the process. They noted that California also has the highest gas prices in the nation. Newsom originally called for action against oil refiners nearly 6 months ago, when California gas prices surged $2.60 a gallon, more than the national average.
Everybody's got to drive. That's the whole thing. We're stuck in that situation. We're not going to walk, right? So you kind of got it sometimes, especially if you commute a lot.
But Jin has some good news for the upcoming summer.
I don't think things will be as bad as last year. I think we're going to see some improvement then on the gas front this year compared to last.
The bill will go into effect in June, but lawmakers have said most of it won't take effect until 2024, and the legislation would not allow regulators to respond to a price spike this year. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Veterans of the Vietnam War were honored this morning aboard the USS Midway. Today marks 50 years since the last American combat troops left Vietnam back on March 29th of 1973. Hundreds of people filled the Midway's flight deck for the ceremony, which included a wreath laying and flyover. One of the veterans spoke to our media partner ABC 10 News at the ceremony, said it meant a great deal to them to receive this recognition.
We were not greeted very well when we came back. I personally was spat on, and I was called some very nasty names when I landed after coming back from Vietnam. And it's wonderful that finally, 50 years later, we're starting to recognize the sacrifices that we all made.
The Army says people who served in the Vietnam War represent almost 10% of their generation. The United States is holding a multi-year commemoration that runs until 2025, 50 years after the war itself ended. We don't often see much of what Camp Pendleton Marines do when they leave Southern California, but this is an exception. Paula Hancox was granted rare access to joint training exercises between the U.S. and South Korean troops.
a ship-to-shore assault, grounding a fighting force and equipment while trying to maintain the element of surprise.
This is the drill that North Korea always reacts to. The idea of American and South Korean Marines storming a beach on the Korean peninsula. Pyongyang sees this as a dress rehearsal for an invasion. Now, the South Korean and American line has always been that this is defensive in nature.
2,500 US Marines and sailors, 3,000 South Korean Marines and sailors working together on one large-scale joint drill. The US Landing Craft Air Cushion, or LCAC, bringing to shore all that's needed for the early stages of battle.
Now, we haven't seen this level of drills on the Korean peninsula for 5 years. Multiple tours across the country of South Korea. They're being held on land, at sea and in the air.
We gained rare access behind the scenes of this training, flying out to the US amphibious assault ship, the USS Macon Island. On the back of North Korean missile launches and disputed claims of simulated underwater nuclear weapons tests, this is a drill that will be watched carefully in Pyongyang.
We're about 30 nautical miles from shore at this point, and this is one of the LCACs that is being loaded up right now, ready for an amphibious landing.
The 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit is meant for rapid response to any kind of crisis, military or humanitarian, self-sufficient and often the first to arrive in an emergency. But with a 5-year gap in training due to COVID-19 and previous diplomatic efforts with North Korea, there is an element of catching up.
We've had to start from the basics again. There's some things that we're relearning. I mean, the basic is just as communications between ships, between aircraft, and then a partner or an ally here in this region.
North Korean military moves, it appears, are not the main focus here.
It's in an area of the world that's significant right now, but it is routine. It has been scheduled. We've done this many times, so the fact that those things are happening around us, really our focus is just on the exercise.
Interoperability is the most used term during this drill, working on smooth American-Korean maneuvers.
We're used to this now, so if we have to do this for real, we've already done it. We've already worked with the Republicans Korean, and we know how to operate with them.
A US return to large-scale drills in a region of both allies and adversaries. Paula Hancock's off the southern coast of South Korea.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Congress questions the former CEO of Starbucks about charges the company is trying to keep workers from unionizing. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Wet weather back in the forecast tonight right into Thursday. We're following an area of low pressure and also some wind, along with mountain snow. Less active conditions returning by the time we work our way into Friday. But again, still talking about some winter alerts out. These are winter weather advisories. And again, these go again from Wednesday night into Thursday. And again, this would be mainly for areas, say, above 4,500 feet to 5,000 feet toward Mount Laguna. Snowfall amounts. Wow, look at this. We're going to be talking about 8 to 12 inches of snow toward Mount Laguna. That's right. Of course, that sits up higher in terrain. Also to the north, if your travels take you, again, in that direction, Big Bear Lake, Wrightwood, we're also going to see some significant amounts of snow. And again, through tonight here, too, we're also talking about wind advisories being in effect. Some of those gusty wind speeds being realized, again, around Borrego Springs toward Julian, also heading into Pine Valley. And again, that's with this next weather maker working its way in our direction. So we're going to see the wet weather arrive. San Diego 51, Chula Vista 49, the same at Oceanside, Ramona 42. There's the snow toward Mount Laguna, dropping into the 20s, and you can see the spin going on. There's the center of it. As we work our way through Thursday, we'll see that slide its way ashore. There are going to be some convective elements here where there can be showers, perhaps even some thunderstorms and some small hail in association with those thunderstorms. And a lot of cold air, not too far up above the surface, the ground. So again, we're going to be talking about the activity there. There are your showers, your thunderstorms, your big dip, and the jet stream. And temperatures will be topping off around 60 at Oceanside and Chula Vista. A little cool, below historical average. 33 in Mount Laguna with the snow. Borrego Springs tops off at 64. But changes coming up later on this week. Still cool at the coast, but the sun's back out. And that'll carry forth into Saturday as we talk about conditions over the interior valleys. Partial sunshine by Friday. A little warm up here to start the weekend. And then we're going to be talking about some low clouds returning on Sunday. Mountainous locations, I talked about the snow coming in. Those winter alerts are up. Sunshine returns, and we'll start to see a little bit milder air trying to make a nose its way in here by Sunday. Some wind coming up Monday, along with some colder conditions. And over the deserts, we're going to be peaking up in the 80s with sunshine Saturday into Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
The police who rushed to the school shooting in Nashville this week are being praised for their quick actions. We're also learning more about the 6 people who could not be saved. Mike Valerio has an update from Tennessee.
I know as sure as I'm sitting here that Catherine went down protecting those kids.
Her friend, Catherine Kuntz, was head of Covenant Elementary School, one of 6 lives lost in Monday's horrific shooting, remembered alongside Mike Hill, the school's beloved custodian, Big Mike to all the kids, and 3 9-year-old students. Evelyn Dickhouse, her family, shattered, her pastor honoring her on Wednesday.
She's amazing, shining light.
Howie Scruggs, her father, the pastor of the church that runs the school, and their classmate, William Kinney. Substitute teacher Cynthia Peak, who was filling in at Covenant on Monday. She and Catherine Kuntz were both good friends of the wife of Tennessee's governor, Bill Lee.
Cindy and Maria and Catherine Kuntz were all teachers at the same school and have been family friends for decades. We will act to prevent this from happening again.
The fast actions of officers who charged in to stop the threat 14 minutes after the first 911 call are being widely praised.
Push it. Go. There's no standing around the hallway talking about it, asking for extra equipment or more people.
We could have been talking about more tragedy than what we are. We had 6 innocent, beautiful lives that were taken, and we had officers that went in harm's way to stop this.
In Nashville, Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
With a divided Congress, it's looking like nothing will be done to address gun violence in a significant way when it comes to our laws. As Chris Wynn reports, this latest debate comes at a time when kids are increasingly the victims of shootings.
Another gun violence tragedy in America, underscoring the findings of a startling new CNN analysis of data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Firearms were the leading cause of death among children and adolescents in 2021 for the 2nd year in a row.
Gun violence in America is simply at unacceptably high levels,
accounting for some 19% of deaths among youth aged 1 to 18. Nearly 3,600 children died in gun-related incidents that year. In no other comparable country are firearms within the top 4 causes of mortality among children, according to a Kaiser Family Foundation analysis.
We have over 350 million firearms in this country, and it's very easy to obtain them.
While polling finds a majority of Americans support the idea of stricter gun laws,
gun owners agree. We have to do something.
A divided Congress means more meaningful legislation is unlikely to move forward.
You want to legislate evil, it's just not going to happen. The laws don't work.
But Nick Saplina of the advocacy organization Every Town for Gun Safety says gun laws do work.
Across the board, states with strong laws have lower rates of gun death, and states with weak laws have the highest rates of gun death.
And says it's incumbent upon lawmakers to treat the issue as a public health crisis.
Until we take meaningful action, comprehensive action on gun safety, guns will remain the leading cause of death for children and teens.
Chris Wynn, KPBS News.
A bill intended to reduce opioid overdoses in California is moving through the state legislature. It would require schools, concert venues, stadiums, and amusement parks to keep Narcan or other medication designed to block the effects of opioids on site at all times. The measure passed out of the Senate Education Committee today and now goes to the Health Committee. The California Department of Public Health says there were more than 6,800 opioid-related overdose deaths in 2021. Narcan, the drug that can reverse an opioid overdose, has been approved for over-the-counter use. Mandy Gaither shows us step-by-step how to administer this potentially life-saving medication.
It's a crisis in America. The CDC says deaths from opioid overdoses rose more than 17% in just 1 year, from about 69,000 in 2020 to more than 81,000 in 2021. But now, for the first time ever, the Food and Drug Administration has approved an opioid overdose antidote for over-the-counter use.
If you come across a person who is unconscious or appears that they might not be breathing and you have reason to suspect that it's related to an overdose, you can save a life with Narcan.
The nasal spray will come in 2 4-milligram doses in case the person overdosing doesn't respond to the first dose. It will be sold in places like drugstores, convenience stores, grocery stores, gas stations, and online. Addiction psychiatrist Trent Hall with the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center says administering Narcan is simple.
Step 1, check. Wake up. Step 2, give first dose of Narcan. Step 3, call 911. Step 4, watch and give more every 2 to 3 minutes until the person wakes up. It's possible for a person to experience another overdose, even without taking more opioids. And so staying with them until the ambulance arrives gives them the best possible chance of survival.
Nearly every state in the U.S. allows pharmacists or other qualified organizations to provide Narcan without a personal prescription to those at risk of an overdose. But making it available over the counter may make it easier for people to access this opioid antidote. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.